One.
We should all turn our heads, really.
There you go.
Yeah, because colorists always get seen from behind, don't they?
Yeah.
I know, it's a change, isn't it? Welcome, everybody. This is the Color Space Cadets, episode 3. If it's the first time you're tuning in, where were you on the last one? I was a bit late on the last one because it is 5 a.m. here in Australia, and I was a bit late getting out of bed, but I'm here now. Now, this is a concept that Kevin and I came up with, and it's supposed to sort of mimic like you finished a training class or you've met up after work and you're just sitting around in the pub or the coffee shop just talking about stuff. And that's what we're trying to do here. So it's a bit of a relaxed gathering. And this week we're going to be talking about grading for the web. What do we do that's different? Technical things we have to look at, and just share some of our own experiences. And we have a special guest with us joining this month, Heather, joining us from Mexico. How are you, Heather?
Hola, how are you?
I'm very well. I'm very well. Can you just give us a brief bio of what you've been up to?
Right now in Mexico, I'm based in Mexico, but I work worldwide. Recently, I've been working out of Sydney for the Sydney Thunder. I'm working on Affirme in Mexico, and I'm working on Mayo Clinic in the States. So that's where I am right now.
Right now, that's not a Mexican accent, is it?
No. Why is that funny?
I'm sharp at 5 a.m. You've got that. Just so I know you've worked around a few places. Just to tell people where you've worked around.
In Chicago, was that your first gig?
Yeah, I started at Avenue Edit in Chicago. Well, actually, it's Avenue Edit in Santa Monica, and then transferred to Chicago. And then after Chicago, I was in Sydney at Frame Set and Match, which is now Vandal.
Yeah.
And then I came back to the States to chase summer. I worked at Box Studios briefly in New York, and then I got a job in Mexico. And I've been here ever since. I think that was 2014.
Brilliant.
Nice.
Great. Mr. Diego, how are you, buddy?
Muy bien, Warren. ¿Y tú?
Muy bien.
Dude, that's great. How are you?
I remember. Small, very small Spanish. What's been happening there? What's happening in Bogota?
I mean, it's good. It's like the industry is already like moving a lot. I mean, companies are coming. Also, Amazon is coming to Latin America, so new production are coming. It looks that everything is moving more than the last year, and so it's a lot of work around.
Cool, man. Now, what percentage of the work that we do would you say is just for the internet and is never going to go anywhere else? I'll start with mine, probably 25%, which is probably going up. People will say, no, it's only ever going to go on a website. It's never going to go anywhere else. Anyone else want to chip in on that?
Mine's still very, very low. I would say less than 10% of mine is internet only.
Heather?
Probably 80%, at least 80%, if not more.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Has that come on very recently, or has that been a slow burn in over the last couple of years? So
during the pandemic, it's increased, but even before then, I think maybe it was before the pandemic, maybe 50-50. And now, yeah, there's been, let's say, so over 2 years, it's gotten up to 80%. So that's where I am now.
And they don't, because a lot of things I do, they make a TV spot, but then they're also doing a lot more socials, but it's off the back of the same grade. And that's where it becomes tricky, because they're going, well, yeah, we definitely got to do this TV spot, but then I've got these 8 other Instagrams and this other thing we want to stick on this website and blah, blah, blah. So you're always considering 2 things, but yours, you're saying, are just going to be web. They're never going to go on air.
Yeah, they're all, for their websites, for the Sydney Thunder, that was all just for social, all for social. So nothing going to air.
Okay, great. Diego?
Yeah, I think it's like you say, it's like, I mean, I think now most of the things finish in internet, social media and so on. So it's like, no matter if you do it like for OTTs or even for TV, at the end, there is going to be something on internet. And probably I will say that as header is like 80%, probably video clips, commercials, and so on. I mean, it was like 10 years ago, it was TV. Right now, everything is YouTube. Everything is YouTube. So in some way, that's like the biggest screen, I will say, for the small color houses in some way.
And do you both think that might be something that is peculiar to South America, or do you think that's something we're all going to see more of in the future?
I think it's worldwide. I think it's worldwide. I mean, right now we live in a world that everything is worldwide. So it's like, I mean, if something happened here, probably it's happening also in Australia. But I don't know. I would like to ask you if you feel the same over there.
I think here is certainly something that's going to happen more. We're obviously starting to see, and the pandemic has just driven this. Like, my kids don't really even watch TV, like all of their stuff. And so obviously the advertising content that we consume online on iPads and that in between our shows as well, high production value. So it leads me to my next question. When you sit down in the chair and you know it's a job for the internet, are you thinking any differently? Are you grading it a different way? What are your thoughts on that one, Heather?
I'm grading the way I think I always have. Nothing, you think that, depending on where it's going and how compressed it's going to be, maybe you want to add more contrast. But at the end of the day, when you're getting approval from the clients, they're looking at it as they would be if they were TVC clients, if they were series clients. They're all looking at it with those eyes, and they're not going through, all the compression that it's going to go through. You want to make it look the best it possibly can before any of that happens. So for me, no, it's the same.
And I guess the big question is, are you looking at it in 709, or are you making the jump to sRGB?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I am working in Rec 709 for sure. Yeah, that's my workhorse. Down and dirty, nothing fancy.
That's a question I often get asked, and I'm the same. If I do internet work, I say, well, most of the stuff you see on the internet is in Rec 709. So even though there's an argument that people watch it on computer monitors and not televisions, I think for consistency, just keep everything in Rec 709. Diego, what's your approach?
Yeah, I mean, it's actually the same, but what I always think about it when it's actually internet is about compression. Compression is the hardest thing. So I usually think more than, sometimes we crush blacks. I know it's not like the most technical thing, but sometimes we crush it. But when it's in internet and you crush the blacks, it's macro blocking. It's macro blocking, and that in internet is going to show a lot of problems. So usually, like when it's internet, I will say, okay, the blacks, I never crush any blacks because I'm going to have macro blocking in the H.264 composition. So that's in some way a rule I want to have when I just go into internet. Yeah.
YouTube loves that solid black, doesn't it? It sees that crushing and goes, oh, there's no detail there. I'll compress that more. Compress it up, and that's where you can get your block in, and you can get more noise, and you can see those artifacts in those areas. So yeah, I'd be the same. But what do you guys say when you get the phone call and they go, oh, it's just for the internet, which means we have low money. But as we've just said, we're doing exactly the same thing, aren't we? But this is obviously a question everyone on that job, DP, shooter, mate, we're all doing the same job really, but obviously for the net means generally less money. And I think it's a bit of a take it or leave it situation, isn't it? It's not going to go away, but it's up probably for people in the industry to try and stick as close as they can for their rates if we're doing these jobs that are just for the internet. Heather, you were chatting when you came on the last mixer that we did, and you were talking about Rec 709A and an issue you had with stills and the differences. Did you get that resolved? Have you got that workflow now?
I do, and just a little backstory for those of you who weren't there at the last mixer. I had a client we were doing a pretty heavy job, and they were saying they loved my stills. Our workflow was, since it was such a heavy job, we were sending stills for each vignette of this job, and they were approving stills, and then I was applying the grade to the rest of that vignette. So client was very passionate, and which I love passionate clients, but he came back to me and was like, your stills aren't matching your quick times. And I'm like, what? Not really what you want to hear as a colorist. So I looked into it. I did some research, went on the Blackmagic forum, and found out, I think it's new in Resolve 17, the Rec 709A. So what was it? You just, in your preferences, you make sure you've got your matte display color profiles for views, project settings, color science, DaVinci white RGB, timeline color space, Rec 709A. Boom, beautiful. So my quick times were matching my project, which was amazing. And I was super, super excited. And yeah, so then I exported my stills and did my comparison, and now the stills didn't match. And I'm like, oh, come on. And ideally, I think in Resolve, it would be nice to have that option when exporting stills to define a color space like sRGB or Rec 709, whatever you're working, right? But they don't. So let's see. So then I started testing, and I had mentioned it at the colorist forum, the mixer that we're at, and nobody really. Maybe I was the only one that had this issue. Have you guys noticed this issue with your stuff?
Yeah, we talked about it, and then I think we talked about it that we probably didn't have long enough to discuss it, right. And I probably have not noticed it, and it's probably there. Did you notice it before you worked in Rec 709A though?
No.
So that was probably where the difference came in, and probably not many of us have been using that.
Yeah,
right.
Rec 709A has caught me out as well, because it's very Mac specific, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Right. And then, and so I searched the forums thinking, I can't be the only. I was thinking it was user error. If no one else has this problem, I'm doing something wrong, which is what normally happens. But I couldn't find it. But after that, colorist mixer, a colorist out of California, Adolfo Martinelli. Are you guys familiar?
Yeah.
Super clever guy. But he reached out, and he was helping me try to troubleshoot this issue. And we tried different things as far as like converting it. What all did we do? Creating a new timeline with exported stills, add color space transform, then exporting the stills, using the render page, which was, a lot. If you're doing a big job, that's a lot to go through just to get stills that look great. But at the end of it all, he ended up writing a script or an application where I can export my stills. I drag and drop my stills into this application he built, and it converts sRGB to Rec 709A. And
wow.
Done. So Adolfo.
No, he's a sharp guy. Yeah, I know Adolfo. He's a great guy. So basically what you've got to do, you've got to go in and change the tags, if you like, on the stills after you've made them. That's probably what he's doing, isn't it?
I was doing, I remember I did that test with you. Tags, going to ELC, going into QuickTime.
Yes, yeah.
In that situation, it didn't seem to matter.
Yeah.
So is it just changing the tags, or are you actually doing a transcode?
Me? Or
the application, I guess.
Whatever he's writing, that the application, he's just converting sRGB to Rec 709A.
Okay.
So is it a batch, drag and drop a number of stills and it does them all? So it's pretty easy. It's not a long-winded.
No, you just drag and drop it, creates a subfolder within that folder that says converted, and all your stills have been converted.
And what's that app called? Is it available?
We need to download it.
He hasn't sold it. He hasn't sold it yet.
They're knocking on Adolfo's door.
Right now, me and him are the only ones I think that have it. But his baby, so.
I'm just interested.
I have to invite him onto the next Space Cadets.
Can you see my screen there?
Yes.
Yes. So a couple of things that we were talking about in there. in here, you've obviously got a number of options. This is in Resolve, in case anyone didn't know. You can hit this button that Heather was talking about, use Mac display color profiles for viewers. Now, this will enable your color viewer in Resolve to be controlled by color sync, which is what Macs use for their color management. And this one alone will help your viewer look the same as, say, your viewer in Premiere or your QuickTime viewer. And that's obviously been a problem for a long time if people are not using calibrated displays and they're just relying on, say, their iMac or their laptop viewer. So this is a useful one to have on your Macs. Now, the other thing we were talking about is tags, and you may have heard tags. Now, if you want to grade in your normal way, say you're using your Rec 709 2.4, but maybe you want to tag something different, you can do that in the render page. And what that means is that when your file that you send to your client hits their QuickTime player, these tags, these idents, will tell it how to be displayed. So it's quite a clever thing that Apple have and Macs have, and you can change these tags in the advanced setting here in the render page. And there are a number of them. There's lots of different ones. They're called NCLC tags, and you can set. So if you're in a 2.4, so if I'm working Rec 709 2.4 and I've got a TV and they say, oh, this particular bit's for the internet, I'll go through and I will tag Rec 709, Rec 709, which will give me a 111 tag, and I'll send that one off slightly differently. So that will go differently, and that will give it a 111. Now, you can do this in here, but again, like we said at the beginning of the show, you need to test this a little bit, yeah, and render some out like what I've done here. When you bring these renders back into Resolve, you won't see that changing there. Now, the reason that is changing between 2.4 and 2.2 is I'm in a color managed project. So it's knowing what it's looking at. It's reading the tags. If you're not in a color managed project in Resolve and you're just working standard DaVinci YRGB, this won't change because it's not color managed. It doesn't recognize the tags. The render was exactly the same. You will see no difference. So to test in DaVinci, if that's what you want to do, by adding tags and changing these gammas, that's the best way to test within Resolve. So it's a good one to play, but like anything, you've got to get in there and try things.
And there's some caveats too. So not all browsers are color space aware. So the best way to test this is in Safari, which will work very nicely. It'll even give you HDR. But I think Google Chrome, for example, is not color space aware. So it won't make any changes. It just ignores the tags.
Yeah, that's a bit of our drama where we're watching our YouTube, isn't it?
Yeah. So
I know one said it with Windows and Mac, because the trick I've got caught out with is, do everything 709A. That seems to work fantastic. And then you see it on a Windows machine, doesn't like the 709A tag too much.
Mm.
So you're on a Windows machine, Kevin, but the software, what does that then do? That Mac 709A then? So it will still obviously change your view.
I have both. So I'm on a Mac now. I'm on a Mac at the moment, but my big sort of heavyweight machine is a PC. But the 709A, you said it exactly right. It triggers the color sync in the Apple. But if you're on Windows, it doesn't recognize color sync.
Yes. Yeah. So the 709, the 709A means you don't have to manually set those tags because those tags will already come out at 111. So it's the other thing I would say before we maybe talk a little bit of some HDR stuff as well through is what I do if I'm uploading to clients, say agency, I put a little bit of bars or maybe a title on the beginning just so when they get the clip, it sort of triggers them into thinking, oh, I need to be looking at it in a serious environment, and not, not outside or not with the reflections coming on the monitor or the iPad. Get it straight, take it a bit more seriously. Whether they actually do, I don't know. But the other thing is, if you've got just a quick 2 seconds of bars and then a gray frame, and you run that at the beginning, if that looks slightly off, then sometimes they can think, oh, that doesn't quite look right. Maybe there's something wrong with where I'm looking at it on. I don't know whether that makes any difference or not, but all I think it does is make them take the viewing a bit more seriously. Does anyone else do that?
Yeah, I normally put a test pattern in front. Actually, the thing I'm most concerned about is our friend full and legal levels.
Yeah.
So obviously, if we're outputting 709, it's pretty much always legal. But occasionally, I get calls saying, "Oh, it doesn't look the same." And I have a little test pattern I put on that it says I think data levels, but in sub black. So you only see it if you're monitoring full range. And then if they see that, I say, "Oh yeah, your monitor's not set up the way that I'm expecting it." So I can either re-render it for your monitor, or you need to switch your monitor over.
Have you added that one to your test pattern pack? Are they still available on the Final Color site?
Yeah, it's on. I'll get the
put the link, because Kevin's got some really useful test patterns. Like if you're setting up your workflow and you go, you've got a few things to connect, and maybe you want to get it in ASUS and you want to know, well, if everything's correct, now this ASUS picture should be looking good, and it is. It's just a double way of checking that you've got your settings correctly. So it's really useful, really useful. It should be. It will be on iColorist or it'll be on Final Color.
This is. I'll put it in the YouTube.
So, do you guys, when you have to export for YouTube or Vimeo, do you export via the preset in Resolve, or you create your own codification?
I just briefly showed it there, didn't I? So where you can go straight to Vimeo, Frame.io. I normally render out, then upload. Don't go straight to there. But I let that I'm not doing any fancy special source compression before it goes up to Vimeo. I try and go the best quality I can and let it decide how it's going to compress it.
Yeah. So I found something about it. And actually like a month ago, a student said to me, is that it depends of, no matter, like for example, it depends on the YouTube channel. The codec, the playback codec is going to be different of your content. So if it's a small YouTube channel, they is going to use like a codec that is called ABC1, and that is a bad quality codec. And if it's a big YouTube channel that has more like 10,000 subscribers, it's going to put a better codec. So when he told me that, I was like, what? And actually I discovered it. And if you are in YouTube, you press right click in the video, and there is an option that says statistics for nerds. And there you can see if your video codec playback is, I think, BP9 or AC1. Yeah. AC1 right. Is the bad quality, and BP9 is the good quality. So what we were testing, and also what we were doing, is that no matter if you export in the best codec from Resolve, but if the YouTube channel is small, it will always play back your video in the ABC1, no matter. But if you have like a YouTube channel with like a lot of subscribers, it will be BP9. But there is a way like to fake that thing in YouTube. For example, if you export something in HD and you export it in a bigger resolution in 2K, and no matter it's HD, then like if in some way you are like saying to YouTube, okay, this have to be a good quality. So YouTube will play back in the BP9 codec. and the content will be better than in the AC one. It's kind of a really nerdy thing, I think. So. But I was like testing, and the difference is it looks a lot. Looks a lot. I was checking like famous videos, something like that, like with video clips, and some of them were AC1, some of them were BP9, and the difference in the detail looks a lot. Looks different, the texture and the colors even. So that's I think a good tip is like when you export for HD, export in a higher resolution if the YouTube channel is small. And if it's a YouTube channel with a lot of subscribers, be sure that when you have your video, the playback codec is BP9. If not, upload it again.
So
That's good.
obviously this YouTube channel is going to look beautiful because there's 10,000 people watching this. Is that what you think?
Let's actually test our videos. What were the codec that we have it? That will be funny. I mean, let's see. Let me just share the screen pretty fast. Okay, so here we have this one. That is your podcast. So if I want to see the statistics, I will right click. I will put a statistic for nerds.
Yeah.
And here I have the ABC1. So that's the codec that is not good quality.
Yeah.
If I'm selecting, I don't know, let's check this random. This is ABC1. Let me actually turn off the volume. Just finished it here. Okay, this is also ABC1. So I mean, the best quality is BP9, and you can find it. I have here in this presentation. You can see this one here, the codec BP9.
Right. Okay. So that was one that was manually changed, or was that the one that YouTube decides to?
YouTube decides it. YouTube decides.
Right, YouTube.
But actually, you can force YouTube to decide it. If you export something in HD, you don't need to export it in 1020. You need to export it in this resolution. That way, you force YouTube to play back your video with this codec.
But still just render it as a QuickTime. You don't have to render it as any special or an H.264, H.265.
No, actually, just a normal H.264. You can start with the preset.
But that's the key to it.
Yeah, that's the key. And I found it really, really important because the difference is so much in the color, texture. And actually, a gamer student said that to me, not a colorist. That's funny.
That's breaking. This is iColorist breaking news.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one.
It's breaking news. We need a little jingle.
We need some gamers.
Now, there's a couple of questions on YouTube. I'll go back to some of the earlier ones. There's a couple of questions on HDR. And HDR is slowly beginning to take shape. I think that the sort of Dolby Vision from the iPhones was a big instigator, so that channels wanted to be able to take the iPhone footage and show it in HDR. And in the most recent sort of Dolby Vision pep talk, they explained how you can upload Dolby Vision to Vimeo. And it's pretty cool. I must admit, I did try to do it today and then found I need to update my operating system and do some stuff, but it's pretty simple. So as you may know, the iPhone actually is recording HLG and then converts it to Dolby Vision for playback. And you can fake that workflow for Vimeo. So what you have to do is do your normal HDR mastering. So it can be HDR10, it can be HLG, it doesn't really matter. And then you put it through Apple Compressor, which comes with Final Cut, but you can buy it separately. I just looked at it today. It's like £44 or something. And you put it through Apple Compressor and you basically set it to HLG 2020, and you have to tag it with 8.4. And that 8.4, when you upload it to Vimeo, forces Vimeo in the transcode to create its own Dolby Vision metadata and play it back in glorious HDR. And I did check, if you do a search on Vimeo for Dolby Vision, you can get some good and some not so good clips of HDR that's been uploaded. So that's my weekend. I'm going to be exploring that and uploading some HDR over this weekend.
Kevin, when you say tag it 8.4, what does 8.4
So it's
mean?
one of the settings in compressor. The metadata setting has to be 8.4.
Okay.
I don't know the full details, but that apparently is what forces Vimeo to think, oh, this is HLG from an iPhone, and I need to create Dolby Vision metadata for it.
Okay, so it's not relating to LC tags then.
I don't think so. And you can't
okay.
you can't do proper Dolby Vision. You see, you can't upload your metadata trims or anything like that. But you can make it look pretty good, and you can definitely use Dolby Vision on Vimeo, and it's related to what we were talking about with 709A. It's all how it's tagged. So if you're playing it back in Safari or something like that, it will trigger the screen. As long as you've got an HDR screen, it will trigger the screen to be correct for that video. So that's a good step in the right direction.
Yeah, so I was having a similar talk as Kevin. I mean, I like HDR. HDR I think is great and so on. But right now the people that can make HDR are the ones that are working with the OTTs. And we can say that in the OTTs, HDR was great. I mean, it's just using the IMF or the ProRes with the metadata and that's it. But what about the Vimeo or YouTube? I mean, and we want to make HDR. HDR looks really nice, but I'm agree about you, Kevin, that the steps of HDR in that platforms are still like in 5 years ago. I don't know. So I was doing some tests, and let me actually share you one test here. I'm actually going to share did you see my PowerPoint screen here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So Okay. So I upload this one to Vimeo. The codec was H265 main 10. First, I have to export it in 2020 PQ. I was like, okay, let's see how the conversion is going to be to SDR. So the SDR conversion without doing anything is kind of, I mean, it's terrible. It's terrible. So what I was thinking was okay, in that case that I need to upload in HDR something for Vimeo, I have to upload an HDR version and also an SDR version. That will mean two. I was doing a similar test in YouTube here, and YouTube is also making an SDR conversion. This is with the trim pass inside Resolve, and this is with the YouTube conversion of SDR, and it's also terrible. It's it's changing the colors. So that's came to the conclusion that, I mean, yes, we can upload files to YouTube and to Vimeo in HDR, but if we need SDR quality, we need to upload another file, because the conversion that they are doing right now, I mean, that automatic one is not working. And I also test the what Kevin said about Apple compressor, HLG, and so on. And I think there are many steps. I mean, it's you have to export and then convert it, and there are you say the Dolby Vision 8.4, something like that. I mean, there are still many steps, but I mean, it's working. But I will encourage everyone, and I say that to everyone, hey, let's start making content in HDR. No matter if it's HDR 10, let's start uploading things and let's start testing. And for example, I will share with you in the chat something that I recorded here in Colombia, and I'm doing some tests. Even I can share you this clip, and you can upload this, export in HDR, H265 main 10 to see how it works. Also, what you will notice is that when you upload to the platform, the time that the platform spends to show you the HDR content is a lot. So for example, in 3 minutes, the HDR content will be available in 8 hours or 9 hours. So it's not you upload it and you see it in HDR. No, you have to wait. So in some ways, testing, But I mean, it's like I like to see HDR, so I encourage everyone like, hey, let's start like creating our content in HDR. The problem is that yes, we need to do right now two versions: the HDR version and another one SDR from the Dolby Vision 3.
What are you looking at it on when you're doing these tests, Diego?
What do I looking at?
Yeah,
That's
monitor.
interesting. I mean, I'm actually like I'm grading them in an ISO monitor,
Yeah.
and at the end I'm looking at in the LG TVs or in my cell phone, like the HDR like results.
And do they have recommendations like on your devices where your brightness setting should be? Should it be right up if you're looking at any HDR content?
I don't know.
Well, it's the biggest variable, isn't it? If you're sending out your stuff to your guys and they're looking at it on an iPad or a phone, like where that brightness set, you can't change too much else. And really, you don't want people to be fiddling with it as long as they've got the night view off and they've got I normally say for SDR stuff, your brightness should be just over the middle when I'm sending stuff out, and obviously your viewing angles and things. Kevin, what do you see with HDR dailies and stuff that you're getting involved with at Mission? How are people doing that?
Have not seen any HDR dailies yet. We're pushing for it. Absolutely trying to encourage it because as you know, I'm a strong believer that editors should be editing HDR because it changes the pace of the cut. But no, I have not seen it. I mean, the big problem is on-set monitoring. There is not really a very affordable solution. And even if you had the money to put, one of your dual layer monsters on set, it would be terrible for location work. It doesn't take batteries. They're not portable. It would just be a disaster. So I am working on a project, which I'm not going to talk about till I've actually got it working. But yeah, I think the next big step is on-set monitoring. And then to get the editors. A lot of the editors do have LG TVs and things that they could see HDR on. But so far, no, I haven't heard of any of them getting HDR dailies.
Heather?
Shame.
Much of it in your part of the world?
HDR?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure there is. I haven't been a part of it.
So you haven't had any requests yet?
No, not yet. I mean, I have all my tools and all my ducks in a row in case I do, but I haven't yet encountered a job that HDR.
Yeah, because where I see it could be coming in is in the corporate branding content, car showroom type things, because that's where it would stand alone, look really good on a nice sort of LG display running in a showroom, and they could then use that, I suppose, on their socials as well, on the YouTubes and things. But so far, those sort of things I've done, people have said, no, we don't need that requirement, or whether they maybe haven't thought of that as an option, or it's a little bit too hard in how they're going to play it all and get it off. But I think it's there's certainly more traction. And obviously, as Diego said, any series now, isn't it? We're talking about Amazon's and our Netflix, then they're only going to want an HDR version. So it's
I feel for anybody that's working on something that has a shelf life, that they expect to last 2 or more years. It would be foolish not to include an HDR version nowadays.
And also what I test, and I learned that from the Kevin lessons, is that when you grade in HDR and then you make the SDR pass, it's like your grade is better. It's like you feel that it was like you discovered some new things, so your grade is better. So what I'm doing, and we're doing in the office, is that with our video clips, we all grade them in HDR, and at the end we finish with the SDR version. But we discovered that we grade better. We found better colors. And at the end, we show the client the HDR version and they like it. They say, oh, it's a mess that still Sony Music doesn't want to publish HDR versions in YouTube and so on. but at the end they like that they have an HDR master in some way. So that's also what I think can differentiate a colorist from another one, like giving different options.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right. It's a good idea, and you know, just for ourselves, maybe if they don't, then we've got that footage. And I say this to everybody, and I say it well. You just need to just start fine tuning your workflows. Like Heather said, if you get the phone call and they go, "Oh, by the way, this job now they need an HDR deliverable," you're gonna have to want to play a little bit and practice before you actually do that. So let's. Round, have we got any more questions there? If not, I'm checking it here. Monitoring, just about monitors. A lot of people can sometimes say, well, I don't have the money for a monitor. I'm just talking about SDR at the moment. Say we're saying, let's say $5,000, probably roughly for a monitor, but I'm just grading for the internet. Doesn't really matter. What are the considerations apart from getting your client monitor set up? I mean, there's other things I'm thinking, like seeing grain and macro blocking and artifacting and banding and other things, that the reason why we should have a calibrated display, other than just the fact we want to look at it in the right color space and gamma. So that, I think the monitor is what differentiate the colorists that can charge a certain amount of money. Would you say that?
Well, I heard the idea, and I've heard of colorists doing this in LA, where they've got a whole bunch of iPads, they're calibrating them and just sending them out to their client. And I think that would be amazing. I would love to do that. So we're all viewing it on the same thing and judging it on the same thing. And that's because we can't control, everyone's monitor, but you can control that. So that's kind of a nice form of control as a colorist. And if I was able to do something like that, I definitely would. Yeah.
I think most of the people that I encourage people to look at is on an iPad Pro. Mm-hmm. And in a lot of the advertising stuff that I do, most of them would have, or look at it on a phone. iOS better than just say an older Mac laptop or something like that is probably better. More in terms of what we look at, because I know you can't see the same sort of detail if you're just trying to grade something off your GUI compared to if you turned off your Flanders or your ISO or whatever and just said, well, I'm going to grade this one on my GUI. You just can't see as much stuff in there, especially when we're talking about banding and noise and we're trying to judge grain and things like that. So just having that bigger screen in front of you where you can just look for different areas, it's still a really important consideration, even if it is just ending.
It's hard to be objective too if you're grading off the GUI, because you've got, a fairly colorful GUI around your image, and even if you go full screen, you're still continually switching backwards and forwards. So simultaneous contrast is really going to mess you up. I think one thing that we should also mention about internet grading is, I'm a big believer that you should grade the image of a size that's comparable to your main distribution. So theatrical grading, you want to do that in a theater. For television grading nowadays, we're pretty much mostly on 32-inch screens. But what about internet grading? Is internet grading generally on a smaller screen? What size is your screen, Heather?
No, normal.
Normal.
I mean, I've got the DM240, but you're right. I do tend to check all of my stuff for the internet on my GUI. I've got Dell Ultra Sharps, and they've been really good for me, at least, to judge, especially internet content. But yeah, I mean, that's about the size of a normal computer. So for me, I feel
I think that's fair. I think, and actually, a DM240 is probably pretty good for internet simulations. Diego?
But Heather, do you review that with lights on, or with or how do you review it? Like
no, I'm always working in the dark with a backlight. Yeah, but you're right. If I was to do it properly, I'd probably have the lights on. It's more ambient. But yeah, I don't know, I like the dark.
Well, not really, because if you're grading 2.4 gamma, that simulates the lights on in 2.2.
But I'm in Rec 709A, which isn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that affects the gamma.
I've got a ISO 32. So what I do, normally would push the work in progress grades up on Frame.io, and then when I'm discussing and viewing with the client, I've got like my iPad there, similar setup in front of the ISO, and I'm looking at both. So if someone comes with a slightly left field comment, I can reference both, and I'm looking at what they're looking at. They're on an iPad, Frame.io, go, oh, okay, yeah, maybe I can see that. Yeah, that's good. And it looks, and it's very similar. So I make sure I do that because then I can actually see the same. And I'm in the same viewing environment, same lights. Where they are, you can't control. But I think that helps as well. But there's never going to be, like I said at the beginning, there's no one answer.
It's hard.
We can just try a few little things to make it easier. The good thing is it's not going away. So there's more and more stuff getting shot and produced, and then hopefully, obviously, graded, which is all work at different levels of work, I would suggest. But it's all grading, eh?
Yeah,
And
it's definitely boosted the market.
Some of the stuff I've seen recently needs lots of grading.
But when I was researching the Dolby Vision thing, the most common use, it seems, of HDR footage is real estate agents doing walkthroughs of expensive properties, and they're all horribly overexposed. I mean, there's a market there. We could make a killing just grading real estate agent stuff.
Yeah,
that's nice.
Yeah, well, apparently they're not even having to make the films here at the moment. Houses are basically selling themselves. People are going around with their own phones, shooting their own videos and selling $1 million houses just off the internet. And people are buying without even seeing. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah,
it's all going to go wrong at some stage. All right, guys. Yeah.
So you say that you show to your clients via Frame.io.
Yeah.
What do you think about the color in Frame.io? Do you because it's actually different. Do you say to them to download the clip or to watch it via Frame.io?
I try and say view it in the browser, because if they download it and view it outside, you've then sort of lost control of it. Because then you don't know where they're sticking it in. They're then pulling it in. I had a client who insisted on downloading and bringing it into Avid. And then the client was going, well, it's not looking on it. I said, well, who knows what it's done when it's coming to Avid? It's doing something. And the monitor they normally look on an Avid was this old Avid, but this was a feature guy, and he'd always done it that way. And I sit with my editor and I watch it. I said, if you're sitting with your editor, but the alarm bells are ringing straight away, because those GUIs are probably not the best monitors. Look at it in the browser, in the Frame.io, is going to be closer than downloading and looking at it in Avid. So there's still a little bit of that going on, but most times they're pretty good.
And
this is
I actually the idea, I think so, right? It's like to get the idea. I mean, the general idea, and then to try to fix it.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yes. No, definitely. I think so. So Diego, I think we might have plans to do one of these Space Cadets just on Dolby Vision, and trims was one of your ideas. Is that a good idea? I think so.
Yeah, because I have many requests from many people that are saying all the time, like, hey, I'm spending how long I need to spend doing a trim version from an HDR program. Do the senior colorists need to do it, or do the assistant colorists need to do it? How much do I need to charge for a trim version? So all of the questions I'm having all the time, and I think it's interesting to know about it.
No, I think it's really good. I think we could definitely do a whole episode just on that, because even if people are not doing it, we know that it's around the corner, and it's just really good to those type things about charging. And does the same colorist sit there and do it? Do you bring someone else in? How long? I know some shows probably wouldn't even trim. They'll just use the automatic trimming. So yeah, I think that would be a really good one. Another one we've got planned is how to get started in the industry. Just different ways, whether you're knocking on doors, whether you can get mentorships, different types of training that you can do. Because we get a lot of requests about, I've done classes, I've worked on this, I don't seem to be able to get in ahead. It's a very tricky question. It's not easy, but anybody who's coloring anything has all started from nothing. Everybody's worked their own way, their own little route into where they're doing it. So it is possible. So that will be a cool little episode as well, I think. What was the other one we discussed, Kevin? There was another one we talked about the other day, didn't we? There's so many.
Yeah, we were going to do one on color management. And just today I got asked to do one on Resolve 17 updates. Again, a lot of it towards color management and HDR, but
well, I think the color management we've talked about, ASUS, because obviously with the new Resolve color management and people using their own color management in Baselight, as ASUS got left behind a little bit. I suppose they're all in a level playing field, but it'd be good to sort of remind people and update people on.
Yeah, I think an episode on ASUS. Excuse me, an episode on ASUS I think would be very interesting, because it would be an introduction to those people that are not using any color management. And we can talk about the the latest features in ASUS 1.3 and some of the things they're working on.
And integrating VFX into your pipe, because I find sometimes, for the colorist, it can be pretty straightforward. But if you've got different VFX vendors, and some of the movies I'm doing, like an indie movie that could have quite a few independent vendors all supplying VFX, that's where it can get tricky. If you do not have those rules locked down at the beginning, you can be doing a bit of juggling. As we know, we're always juggling right at the end, aren't we? Everything's coming in late. We've got to try and get it all.
One of the roles that I have at Mission is to get involved at the beginning and to lock down the pipeline so that everybody is using the same color science and the same show lots. And because visual effects work really hard to be able to match the editorial proxies with anything they do. And so we work hard to make that happen. So I think it's getting better. I certainly see more colorists getting involved earlier in the project than even a few years back. So that's good news.
I've just put a link there in from Pabtical, Stuart, who did the Monitor Mythbusters with us last year. If you haven't seen that and you're interested in monitors, it's still pretty relative, even though it's a little bit out of date now. He's got a list of NCLC tags on his website. So if you go there and wondering what 1.18.1 means, it will explain it for the different tags. So he's a useful website, and Stuart's a good guy. Also, Filmlight, Daniele's has got a good video on tagging through Baselight, which goes through. And I just there's a lot of pretty good stuff out there, and the more you watch it, the more it sort of sinks in, and you get the idea of how that works. Thanks for joining us. We're going to wind this up. It's been great having you, Heather. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, thanks for joining, Heather.
My pleasure.
And it's been really good. Thanks, Diego, buddy. So we'll look forward to probably some Dolby Vision chat coming up.
And the next
who would you like to be a guest? Diego, who would you like on as a guest there? Some big hitting colorist, or do you want someone like who do you want to get? You choose, eh?
Maybe I would like actually two. I would like actually, because what I found is that the senior colorist is actually not doing the trimming pass. He's doing the assistant are doing that. So I would like the two opinions. It would be interesting.
Yeah. All right, that's a good idea. I think you're right there, because I know some of them probably just pass it off and then it probably does go out to the back room, doesn't it? All right, I've got a few people in mind. We'll make some calls, Kevin. We'll make some calls.
Yeah, I've got a couple myself, but let's not mention any names.
No. They'll probably go, no, we're not going to work with those guys. What time? 2 a.m.
If you are interested in that though, there will be the HDR, the Dolby Vision chat from the Colorist rap party mixer. That'll be coming out soon.
Yeah. So all these videos, including the mixing ones, are all on iColorist, and there'll be links to them on our YouTube page, and they'll all be there soon. But obviously, if anyone else has got any further training, or they want to book any iColorist people for one-on-one private sessions or get together with a group, it's all possible. Just go through the website and we can make things happen. All right, guys. It's been fun. Please enjoy your day.
Thank you.
Whatever that means. I've got to get some breakfast now.
Thanks, everybody.
See ya. Oh, well done, guys. That was